Hey everyone, I'm Ronan, and today we are reviewing Feats in Baldur's Gate 3. Some things have changed if you're a fan of D&D. Some of your favorite feats are actually nerfed in this game for balance reasons, and some are kind of just changed in general. We are going to review my personal favorites, things that I think are really great, things I don't think are as good, and things that I think are really misleading. But to start off, you gain a feat every kind of like 4 levels. So at level 4 you gain a feat, at level 8 you gain a feat, and at level 12 you gain a feat. Fighters and rogues are an exception. Fighters get an additional feat at level 6 and rogues gain an additional feat at level 10. If you don't care about going into all this and you want this to be super simple, you just want to play the game, you don't care about all that stuff, just choose ability improvement. And this is a great thing because you can do this every single time to increase your stats right here. For example, every even number you have gives you a positive kind of like ability modifier. Strength, I'm at 16, so I would get a +3 to my strength checks. I can bump this up to 18, and you can now see it's +4. This also affects my chance to hit with my melee weapons, as well as my damage. So at 18, I would always get +4 to damage and +4 to hit. You can see I have odd numbers right here, 13, 13. If you take a look, dexterity is +1, constitution is +1. I could now bump these both up to 14, which then gives me +2. So no matter what, ability improvement is never a bad thing. Alright, let's move on. So you have some things that I consider to be half feats, meaning they give you one ability improvement, but also give you an additional effect. For example, Actor. This will give you Charisma +1, and it gives you proficiency bonus to Deception, and proficiency bonus to any performance roll. I don't think Actor is that great, some people might like it. Alert. Alert is a really great feat because it gives you +5 bonus to initiative, and you can't be surprised. Getting surprised is a little rough in this game because not only are you going to more than likely get attacked in combat, but you also lose a turn when it would normally be your turn for the first round. Really though, this feature is the +5 initiative. If you are a heavy wielding class like me, when I respec my paladin eventually, I'm going to lose points in dexterity. So dexterity also gives you initiative. Well, this will give me +5 initiative so I could go sooner rather than later. Moving on. Athlete is pretty great because this is again one of those half feats I talked about. You can choose to get +1 in dex or your strength, but you also have the option when you are prone. Standing only uses a small amount of your movement speed, which is really nice, but you also gain 50% jump increase, and it is significant. 50% is really great if you're a strength build. Charger. This one is actually underrated and really fun if you can actually get it into your builds. So this gives you two different things you can do. You can gain the weapon attack charge. So say you need to reach someone to attack them, but you can't actually reach them. So you could actually get as close as you can and then use this ability. And this will allow you to literally charge forward and you won't gain any opportunity attacks against you, which is really nice. So it's a nice gap closer that will also do damage. And you have Charger Shove, so very similar to the weapon attack. The only difference is you will charge the enemy and have a chance to push them back. Crossbow Expert. So this one is one that's actually nerfed from D&D. And I gotta say, I don't think this one is that great. So one thing it does do, it allows you to basically have point blank shots. When you make crossbow attacks within melee range, the attack rolls do not have disadvantage. Normally when you're using a ranged weapon and you're up close, within 5 meters, you have disadvantage. So say you are a rogue, for example, and you're dual wielding hand crossbows, this could be useful. But for the most part, if you're going to be using a crossbow, you're not going to be in melee range anyway. And if you are, you're either there on purpose or you have bad positioning. But this also gives your piercing shot to inflict gaping wounds twice as long. It's okay. I would not say this is a great feat to have unless this is pretty much one of your last feats and you just want it. Defensive Duelist though, this is a better feat than I gave it credit for. So essentially, when you are using finesse weapons that you're proficient with, which if you are using them, you are proficient, you can use a reaction on your turn to essentially increase your armor class. This is really great because most people that are dex builds probably don't have as high as HP as a strength build. You're not a tank, so getting hit less is never a bad thing. Dual Wielder. This one works exceptionally well if you use the fighting style. Basically, dual wielding, like for example, like fighters, they can give their ability modifier to their offhand. So essentially, if you normally when you dual wield, you would be having a short sword or a dagger in each hand. Say you're doing that, that's really great because you now gain +1 bonus to your armor class while wielding those melee weapons. But you can also use weapons that are considered light. So I mentioned short swords or daggers. Well, now you can use long swords, for example, if you wanted instead, which gives you slightly more damage. Or rapiers, for example, which are probably the hardest hitting one-handed finesse weapons in the game. Dungeon Delver. This one is okay. I mean, you gain advantage on perception checks while looking at traps and things like that, and to detect hidden objects. I don't think this is that great because if you already have a rogue in your party, for example, just let the rogue lead. They're gonna have most likely great enough perception to see what they need to really help out with traps and things like that. If you don't have a rogue, however, this could be pretty useful. Durable. This, in my opinion, is worthless. You do gain Constitution +1, which is okay, but gaining full hit points when you take a short rest is not a big deal, considering you get 2 every long rest, and with how much materials you actually have to take long rests in general, there's no point. There's no point for this, in my opinion. It's a waste. Just take a long rest instead of a short rest. Elemental Adept. Now this is an amazing feat for your casters. Essentially what this does is if you choose an element, for example, I'm going to choose cold right here. So what this will do for me, because I chose cold, all my cold spells that I cast will ignore resistances, which is really great because you will run into enemies eventually that resist some of your favorite spells. Well, now they won't. And when I do damage with that type of spell, for example, cold, I cannot roll a 1. So no matter what, the damage will at least be better than a 1. It's pretty nice. You really want this for the resistance though. Not rolling 1 isn't a bad thing at all, but it's really for the resistance. Really great for your casters. Great Weapon Master. One of the best feats in the game if you're using a two-hander, if you know how to use it. So this comes with 2 different things. You have the bonus attack, so when you land a critical hit or kill a target with a melee weapon attack, you can make another melee weapon attack as a bonus action that turn. If you already use your bonus action, this does not restock that, so keep that in mind. However, there is a toggle here, and the toggle is what really makes this exceptionally strong. You take a -5 penalty to attack rolls, but when you do hit, you can add +10 damage, raw damage, +10, on top of your modifier. So if your strength happens to be at level 20 and you hit with this, you're looking at 15 damage base regardless of what your actual weapon roll ends up being. This is really easy to manage because you have spells like Bless and whatnot in game. You have a Barbarian skill, for example, they can gain advantage on their attack rolls. It's really great. Heavily Armored. You gain Strength +1, and when wearing heavy armor, you do not impose disadvantage on your attack rolls, and it does not prevent you from casting spells. Pretty nice. I mean, you also gained a proficiency with it as well, which is pretty cool. For the most part, though, if you're going to be using this, I guess it's going to be for casters. Kind of misleading. I don't think it's as good as it says, because if you know how to multi-class correctly, then you wouldn't really need this anyway. Now, Heavy Armor Master is way better. So you gain Strength +1, which is really nice, as we talked about earlier. Gaining those half feats are never a bad thing. But all incoming damage is not magical, is also decreased by 3 when wearing heavy armor. and this stacks with other effects. So you could put on Blade Ward with this as well, and you're looking at a significant amount of damage reduced. This one is really nice for your heavy melee kind of tank. I really like it. Now, light armored is interesting because mentioned it's a half feat, so you can gain strength or dexterity. But when wearing your light armor, you don't gain disadvantage on attack rolls, and you can cast as well. Again, mentioned earlier, this is more so for casters than anything else. This is, in my opinion, better than heavily armored because it's easier to actually obtain, and it's more likely you'll be able to use this correctly. Now, Lucky is a really great feat. So, Lucky, in a sense, gives you 3 luck points, quote unquote, and you can use those to your advantage. So, say you roll a nat 1, and that really sucks. Who likes rolling nat 1s? Critical failure. You could use a luck point and re-roll the attack roll, for example. Keep in mind, though, when you re-roll it, you do have a chance to roll another nat 1. However, chances of that are pretty slim. Okay, Mage Slayer. I mean, I'm not a big fan of this. So, you have advantage on saving throws against spells cast within creatures within 1.5 meters of you. For the most part, if they're casting at you, they're probably not going to be up close. If they are, it means you're going in to kill them anyway. But you can use a reaction to make an attack against the enemy after it casts its spell. I mean, that's pretty cool, I guess. It's really niche in my opinion. And enemies you hit have disadvantage when making saving throws to maintain their concentration. Now that's the best part about it, because breaking concentration for spells in this game is really huge. I mean, how many people fought the Hag? She uses hold person on your friend, you hit her, and that person still can't go because they're still held. So this part of it's really nice. The other 2 parts are niche. Overall, I would say this is a above average feat, but not something you would pick right away. Magic Initiate, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard are all okay in my opinion. These are best with classes that merge their casting abilities. So, example, Bards use Charisma for their casting. So do Sorcerers. So do Warlocks. So essentially, it allows you to get a spell from that class, and it scales with that ability. So if you're a wizard, for example, and you choose a bard spell, well, none of these will actually do anything with your intelligence, so keep that in mind. All right, martial adept. This is okay. This is essentially if you are playing the battle master from the fighter subclass, which has a special dice to do special things in combat. It gives you one of these dice to do that, and you get to choose which 2 that you want. So example, disarming attack is one of my favorites because it allows you to attack, do additional damage, and have the foe drop their weapons, which is really strong against certain enemies. However, it's only 1 dice. If it was more, it'd be way better. With it only being 1 dice, though, is very limited. I feel that if this gave 2 dice instead, it would be such a better feat. 1 is okay. That being said, you can technically take this as a fighter, and if you already are that subclass, gain even more dice and extra actual choices of your things you want to do in combat. Alright, Medium Armor Master. I actually was a pretty big fan on this. One of my favorite subclasses to play is a mix between Gloomstalker and Rogue. So this allows you to not take disadvantage on stealth checks when wearing medium armor. And normally medium armor is capped at +2 for your dex modifier. Now it's +3. So now you have a stealthy class that has a lot of AC and doesn't take disadvantage. I really like this for stealth classes. Alright, mobile. This one is really nice. Your movement speed increases, which is really great, and difficult terrain does not slow you down when you dash. So if you are a rogue and they get a bonus action dash, this is really big because you gain 3 more meters from movement, plus you don't gain any terrain slowing you down, which is really, really nice. But even better, if you move after making a melee attack, you don't provoke opportunity attacks. So if you need to get out because you're low HP and you're afraid you're going to die and you have someone next to you, none of them will hit you, which is really, really nice. Alright, moderately armored. Again, we talked about the half beats. Gaining one of these ability scores if you need it is never a bad thing. But what's really great with this is when you wear medium armor, you will not impose disadvantage on your attack rolls, and you do not have anything stopping you from casting, which is really nice if you want that extra AC if you're a caster, and you can actually use a shield as well. So it's pretty nice. You just gain those proficiencies as a caster in one of these as well. Performer kind of reminds me up top with Actor. It's one of those out of combat feats, which some people really like for RPing. Basically, you gain musical instrument proficiency and you gain charisma +1. So if you really like it for out of combat stuff, it could be really useful to you. Polearm Master. This is niche because you do have to use some type of polearm, meaning glaive, halberd, quarterstaff, spear. But this is actually a really great feat if you are using those weapons. Essentially what this allows is when you go to make an actual attack, you can make a bonus attack using the blunt end of your weapon. It's only 1d4, but it is affected by your ability score. So for example, I have 16 strength, so I get +3 to my damage. So if this bonus attack hits, it's the 1d4 plus my ability modifier. And this is actually affected by Great Weapon Master. So if I have that on and it hits, it's another +10 damage on the bonus attack as well, which is really, really nice. But you also gain opportunity attacks against the enemy when they come in range of you. A really great combo is to put darkness on the enemy so they have to run out of it, and if you happen to be right at the exit, free attacks on the enemy. Really, really strong, and this will actually combo super well with another one that we're going to talk about soon. Alright, Resilient. This one is really good, and if you want an ability score increase while also gaining an additional saving throw, this is huge. For example, Paladins do not gain a Constitution saving throws. Like, they do not have proficiency in it. So gaining this is going to be great because if you look, I have 13, so this will bump me up to 14, and I gain proficiency with that saving throw. This is really big because there are a lot of saving throws. Constitution and Dex specifically are used a lot in this game. So I would say this is a really good feat and one that's universally useful for almost any class, not all. Ritual Caster. I mean, this is nice if you want some of those ritual spells like Speak with Dead. Personally, I think Speak of the Animals, and basically these two would be my favorite, or Disguise Self. It's an okay feat. It's more for out of combat things, but Speaking with Animals is really nice because you will lose out on a lot of side quest and story if you don't have that. Okay, Savage Attacker. This one I think is misleading. It's really good early on, but loses value as you level up. So when you actually attack with your melee weapon, and it has to be melee, I know it doesn't say it, but it is melee, you can roll your damage die twice and use the highest result. So for example, say you go and you roll really bad. Well, maybe that second dice would be better. Here's why it loses value. We talked about ability improvement earlier, how this is just going to be raw stats every time you level it up. Well, once you get your main actual ability modifier to 18 plus or even 20, you're guaranteed to get +5 chance to hit and damage. So the higher your actual main ability stat is, the less that actual feat is going to be good. Good early on, but loses value. If you disagree, I would love to hear why. Alright, Sentinel. This is the feat that just everyone knows goes hand in hand with Polearm Master, and here's why. So, when an enemy within melee range attacks an ally, you can use your reaction to make a weapon attack against that enemy, which is really, really cool. One thing to note though, the targeted ally that's getting attacked can't have this feat as well, so you can't stack it to have just infinite attacks. But you gain advantage on that on all opportunity attacks, which is really nice. That way you have a chance to hit even better. And when you hit them with an opportunity attack, they can no longer move for the rest of their turn. You remember how we said with Polearm Master, if they get into your range, you can hit them with an opportunity attack. Well, if they're going after your caster buddy who's low HP and you hit them because you have Sentinel, well, now they're stuck in place next to you. It's a really nice combo. Sharpshooter. This is basically the Great Weapon Master for ranged weapons, and this does affect offhand crossbows. So if you have the one-handed crossbows, this will affect your offhand. This has two different things. A, you will have a -5 penalty to your attack roll, but you deal additional 10 damage. This is toggleable, so you don't have to actually have it on. You could toggle it off. But you also don't receive any penalties for shooting people that are high ground. Normally, if they're higher ground than you, you would be at disadvantage. Well, this helps negate that. Shield Master. So this one's pretty cool because you gain +2 to your dexterity saving throws while wielding a shield. And if a spell forces you to make a dex saving throw, which there are a good amount that do, you can use a reaction to completely diminish the effect. And if you fail, you only take half damage. That's pretty big to completely nullify a spell, especially if it's one really powerful. Yeah, it's pretty nice. Skilled, this is just if you want extra points, so you can just put that up. That's really going to be preference. This is more for added combat things, in my opinion. Spell Sniper, I actually really like this, and here's why. So, spells can crit. So with this, you can roll a 19 or 20 to crit, so it puts your spell crit chance up to base 10%, but you get to choose a cantrip from another class, and if you don't know, Eldritch Blast is the strongest cantrip in the game, because once you hit, I think it's max level, you get to shoot 3 of these that all do 1 d10 damage. So if you get lucky, you could do 3 d10 damage. And there is a ring that you can actually have that will make this scale with your casting ability score. It doesn't have to be charisma, which is pretty cool. But you do got to get that ring. I'll have a guide on that eventually once I figure out a better way to get it. Okay, Tavern Brawler, my god, excuse me. So when you make an unarmed attack, improvised weapon, or you throw something, your strength modifier is added twice to the damage and attack rolls. First thing when I think about this is, oh, monks, obviously, because they punch a lot. Well, did you know this works for druids? Yeah, your little forms that you take, whether it's like bear and stuff like that, this technically works with that as well, because their attacks are considered improvised weapons. But it is a little glitch. It doesn't seem to always do it, so I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's intended or not, but I know it does actually work some of the time. Tough, this is just basically get you extra HP for every level you gain. Could be good for people that are squishy, but with better positioning, you won't really need it. Warcaster, one of the best feats in the game, hands down. So you gain advantage on saving throws to maintain your concentration spells. And concentration spells are some of the most effective spells in the game. They're great for CC, they're great for buffing you and your teammates, like Bless, Haste. This is really great, but you can get to also use a reaction to cast Shopping Grass for a target moving at a melee range. So instead of using an opportunity attack with your melee weapon, you can instead cast Dispel. So really great. I mean, the spell is okay. You really want this for the actual advantage on saving throws to maintain your concentration. Nothing feels worse than buffing you and your teammates. You get hit and then instantly the spell's gone. Weapon Master, in my opinion, is kind of useless. I mean, all martial classes are going to have all of these anyway. And if you're not a martial class and you're trying to get these, there are other ways to do this that are going to be substantially better and make sure your resources are not kind of wasted. I think this is a bad feat. Anyway, this is my review of all the feats in game. Let me know what you think. What is your favorite feat? Do you disagree with what I said? I'm sure many of you do. And did you learn anything new? If you did, give the video a like and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one. I'm losing my voice. Bye-bye.